Hey guys, just a little bit of a trigger warning. This episode was supposed to be fun and lighthearted. However, things took a bit of an emotional turn and we ended up discussing a few heavy topics. We still think that this is an important topic and discussion to be had, so please listen at your own discretion and enjoy the episode.
What do you want to be when you grow up?
Your kids can be whatever they want to be as long as they become a doctor, lawyer, engineer, or accountant. And then once your kid becomes a licensed professional in one of the categories, ignore their advice because you naturally know more due to your age. After all, decades of being an Asian parent qualifies you to give learned medical, legal, accounting, engineering advice despite having zero professional training.
University of WeChat.
So this person that I know, they have brought home a few partners. Their parent will not have a bar of it unless they are full-bred Chinese, rich, whatever it might be for their checklist. So every time they brought someone home, complete ignored.
So they just didn't acknowledge.
It wasn't there.
Yeah, that's hard. Some person on the road was just being an like just blocking the traffic. He drives past, waits for the person obviously to walk past, and then he goes, "Push it, yeah, don't man."
I don't know if you guys can relate to this. Being forgotten to be picked up at school.
Yeah.
My mum's a music teacher and she got so entrenched in practicing a song that she actually forgot about the time. I was the last kid outside of school. I was like crying and I was like super like upset and I just started walking home. And the whole time I was like, I hate my mum. Like I was like, what am I gonna say to her when I see her? And then yeah, Noel's story, like it makes me sad. I'm like crying about it now. But yeah, same thing, like
It's meant to be a fun episode.
Look, I think it's real, man. No parents are perfect though. Like there wasn't a manual on how to do this right. The other thing to remember is also that like our parents also had a lot of trauma with the way they were raised in much, harsher conditions. A lot of them from backgrounds with war, and they're just figuring it out. 1
second we hate our parents because they do all sorts of up shit, and then the next second you're like, my parents f***ing up.
Yeah.
This is a very derailed episode.
Before we get started on today's episode, we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which this podcast is recorded, the land of the Darug people. We would like to acknowledge and pay respects to our elders past and present and the next generation coming through. Now, onto today's episode.
All right, welcome back to another episode, guys. I know how much you guys enjoyed the last Reddit Reacts episode, so we're back for another one as well. I'm calling this episode Not So Subtle Asian Parent Traits. And if you guys, also just as a favor, this podcast is not free. It's going to cost you something. You're going to need to subscribe, like, comment, and also join us on YouTube as well. But also leave us a 5-star review on Spotify or favorite audio platforms as well. But let's get into it. Now, I've got a list of different not so subtle Asian traits, or there might be some subtle stuff in between. And I just want to get everyone's reactions and what you guys think and whether or not actually your parents do this as well. Okay. Now, some of this stuff, bit morbid, bit sad. And I got this from Asian Parent Stories as a subreddit, which I know you're a big fan of, Davey, as well.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a bit up there. And we're going to mix it up with a little lighthearted stuff. So Noel's the light, I'm the darkness, and we're going to mix it up a little bit. Yeah. All right, number one. Here's the title of this particular thread, okay? It was like, how to be an Asian parent. First one is, your children are your retirement plan. Make sure to mention this as often as possible once they start their careers and have an income. Does that happen with you?
Yes.
That's why I asked you first.
100%. They also what was it? Oh shit, I lost my train of thought. What was it? What else did they say? They say something. Oh yes. Yes. Now I remember now. They also have to remind you how much it costs to bring you up as a kid as well.
Oh, they give you the guilt of how expensive it is to raise you.
Yeah, so therefore, you have to look after us when we're older. That's how it works.
How do you respond?
Me? Well, now I say to them, I'm 34 years old. I've been paying you since I was 17. So technically, I've paid you half of my life. So I've paid you back for everything that you've done for me right now. So now, if I'm looking after you, don't use that excuse of me anymore because I've looked after you like more than.
So you've got a dollar figure in mind?
No, it's not the dollar figure. Yeah. It's more like I didn't pay for anything since since 1 to 17. But I did when I was 17 years old, and I now I look after them, so they can't use that excuse anymore because I looked after them the same amount of years.
For more than half.
Yeah, now it's more. So,
What
that's
do
what I said. But when I said that to them, yeah, they weren't happy.
What did they say?
They basically went I forget the Asian, the Chinese terms they use, but they basically said, as a son, you need to look after your parents.
Duty.
Yeah, it's your duty, and you can't say things like that. It's not about how long, or how much, even though all those years, that's what they did. They said how long and how much they spent on me, and said a bit hypocritical. But I was only joking,
But they weren't.
Yeah, they got serious after that.
Did your parents?
Look, I just have to pre-frame this and say that I had an atypical upbringing, single mother, and so I didn't have there wasn't a dual parent dynamic. And my mother and I obviously only had each other in this country. I'm an only child as well, so we were very close, and she played the role of both, the maternal and the paternal figure. So she had to be strict when she needed to be, but she also had the opportunity to give me a lot of attention because I was the only child as well, even though she was working a lot. So background is she's the middle child out of the 8th child out of 13. So she was neglected. She was about as neglected as you could get in a family dynamic. So she was able to, I guess, kind of do the opposite of her upbringing and kind of give me all the attention that she didn't necessarily have. So that's why I wanted to kind of bring more of a positive spin. I'm probably not going to align with a lot of these, but I also want to bring a different angle to other upbringings that aren't as traumatic.
And did your parents?
Yes, so I'm the oldest daughter for context, and I have 2 siblings underneath me. My dad is already pushing for it, and I've always been raised like that. It's always when we get older, make sure you buy a house and we can all live together, or when we get older, make sure that you look after us, don't forget about us, all of those conversations.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Anyway, yeah, we'll go back to it.
I mean, for me though, I didn't have that pressure, but I also feel it now though, as I'm older and as my mum's getting older.
Even though she hasn't said it.
Even though she hasn't said it, because I'm she doesn't have anyone else. And so I feel obligated, but I don't feel the guilt, or I don't feel it's, it's not my responsibility. I feel I want to do it. I haven't been pressured into it, but I want to because she's also sacrificed a lot for me.
Yeah. And speaking about sacrifice, we sacrifice a lot of our time to do this for the podcast. So you should, follow us, like us, maybe comment, and check out our YouTube as well.
All right, next one. This might be, I'm curious to get Viv's take on this one. It says here, well, there's actually 2, but I'll do the first one. Demand to know every little detail of their life. No privacy required. Boundaries must mean they are doing something they shouldn't be doing and hiding it from you. As a daughter, and having 3 dudes on the couch, did your parents treat you that way, where you had to they had to know everything? You couldn't close the doors, you couldn't do any of that. There was no privacy. They had to know where you were, what you were doing.
Physically, I think my parents are a bit more unique, or compared to other tiger parents, where we all have our own space, or now that we've moved into a different house, they deliberately have different spaces for all of our siblings so that we can just roam as we need to. But in terms of where I'm going and what I'm doing, I copped it the most with strict parents. So I had to be home at a certain time, or if I wasn't saying anything, they needed to know something, and then I would get really angry. So yes, in that sense, I have had a lot of different pressures, or what are they called? Stereotypes or expectations put on me compared to what my siblings go through. Now they're going out to concerts until midnight or past midnight.
Is that because you were the oldest and they went through it first, so they were extra careful with the first child?
Yes, correct. But also I think my mum's just if I ever raise it to her, she just forgets conveniently, or she doesn't think it ever happened.
Okay, got it.
Selective memory.
Yeah, selective memory.
Nah, I didn't have it.
Yeah,
I'm the youngest. I'm the
okay.
youngest as well. So
That's my brother right now. He's doing whatever he wants to do.
Yeah.
I didn't get any of that.
Yeah, I did whatever I wanted, which that's why my brothers hated me when I was younger for a little while.
You were a spoiled brat.
Yeah, I was a spoiled brat. Yeah.
Only child?
Yeah, I kind of got to do everything I wanted as well. And it didn't help that my mom was like working a lot and like studying for a long time as well. So I had a lot of time just unsupervised to do what I wanted to do.
All right, next one I've got. Take an immediate dislike to your kid's partner. They are a threat and will encourage your kid to rebel against you and leave you. This must be stopped. How do they feel about
I think they're indifferent. My partner now, he's the first non-Asian that's been brought into the family. Like my sister's got an Asian partner, but they don't dislike him, I think. My mum still wants me to have a Chinese husband, but I think they are doing their best to bring him into the family, I think.
Did you have a situation where your parents liked all of your partners?
Yeah, the first one spoke Cantonese, so she liked her. And Shirley, she's been indifferent. Yeah. Shirley's cool. She's like kind-hearted, and I think our parents
Gets along easily, right? Yeah.
Yeah, they can tell. Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn,
Yeah.
we're not exciting
Yeah,
here, man.
no.
Oh, actually, I got a story. I did have an ex that I brought home, but my parents are the type who when they meet you, like first time, they're like really nice and make you feel comfortable and home. But after we broke up and I told him, she was like, yeah, she wasn't great, man. And my mum specifically.
The fact that she kind of put up with it was also like she loved you enough to just be like, oh, you do your thing.
I don't think many of us have tiger mums, right? Do you guys have tiger mums? Yeah,
No.
I think
Or
that's
tiger parents in general.
Yeah.
Protective, but
Protective, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But a lot of these stories were really about like either tiger parents or just really like specific traits that parents seem to have as well.
But that would suck, man. Imagine like you bring your partner home and then they just like he's
Yeah, I got a mate who I might have mentioned before, like on the podcast, but like he's got a real tiger mum, and I think he's brought home at least probably a dozen girlfriends over time, and we're same age. So think about this over the last like 10 years, and every single girl is not good enough for him.
Wow.
Like I would argue he's married now and she's probably still not good enough for her.
That's so hard to deal with. So this person that I know, they have brought home a few partners, female, and brought home a few partners. And this person that I know, their parent will not have a bar of it unless they are like full-bred Chinese, like rich, whatever it might be for their checklist. So every time they brought someone home, complete ignored, like doesn't exist in their life.
What do you mean? Is it?
This person does not exist in this person's life, therefore I'm not going to interact with it or have a bar of it until like, so now they're with someone who is the checklist and they now will interact with them or believe that they're in their life now. So because it didn't pertain to their ideas, they didn't exist.
So they just didn't
Acknowledge. It wasn't there.
So if they said hi, would they even respond hi back?
I don't think they interacted enough, but it was just like a out of obligation, sure, but not a I will
there's
interact
no
with you
effort
further.
put
Yeah.
into it whatsoever.
Yeah, that's hard. That's tough, man. That's very tough.
Yeah, that's okay. That's pretty up. You want to add we should add a wholesome one in between if you want to add not Mr. Light.
Okay, so not all Asian parenting stories can be that traumatic. Look, this is a really wholesome thread about heartwarming childhood stories with your Asian parents. So there's one, and look, I don't know about your dads. I didn't have a dad growing up, but I guess a stereotype with Asian dads is that they're kind of stoic and don't really show a lot of emotion, don't really know how to communicate well or show affection. This is a really wholesome story. So this Reddit user, I was 5. My dad would usually try to punish and humiliate me for doing something. I can't remember exactly. Not brushing my teeth right, not saying good night correctly, not looking at him or obeying him right, whatever. He would sometimes strip me down to my underwear and make me stand with my face against the wall in the dark. I had just been in the US for a few months and I was raised by my aunt in Taiwan and still getting to know my real parents. I remember my dad would leave and then come back to me to check up on me, making sure my face was planted against the wall. It was better than a beating. He would always tell me to go to bed before my mum came home, and she worked until 11 at night sometimes. But one night he forgot and he must have fallen asleep. I remember hearing my mum come home. I heard her wake up my dad, all screaming, asking where I was. Next thing I know, she turns on the light, picks me up and carries me to bed. She strokes my hair, telling me that everything would be okay. I remember trusting her in that moment and how from then on, I would always feel safer when I felt her presence. My mother was not the most fit parent. She didn't really like kids. She wasn't the nurturing type. But the little love and affection she showed me went a long way. And I would always love her for that. That is a scary
It's a
thing.
f***ed up dad, though.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
Are you crying, Davey?
No. No. Shut up.
I don't know. Is that like, I mean, this is interesting to me, but it's like...
Like, it's a very visceral
It's a very
experience.
visceral thing, yeah. But like, you know, like, I guess I'm grateful that I didn't have a negative paternal figure. But is that dynamic typical to have like the male that's kind of strict and, you know, punishing, and a mother who's kind of soft but kind of has to do that in secret?
I thought that was supposed to be a wholesome story.
Yeah,
It's a
my
sad
bad.
story.
This is
That's a really sad
Okay,
story.
let's try it.
No, we can answer that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Holy
It just kind of reminds me of like my family's relationship, like how it is. My dad was like, I don't blame him, but he was quite strict, and I think it's because he worked 7 days a week. Betty came home, and when he did come home, you know, me being a kid and the spoiled one, I would do stupid or break things by accident because, you know, I was at home alone sometimes or with my brothers, and we'll just do stupid. And so he'll come back and he would tell us off, and I would be always afraid of him. And yeah, there were very bad times where, like, you know, I got cigarette burns. There were times where, yeah,
Whoa.
yeah. And like in the end, my dad was probably burnt out and stressed,
Yeah.
and he did what he did. But like, yeah, my mum was always there to protect me. Yeah, so it was sweet. Yeah.
Look, another wholesome story. My dad used to get advanced screening tickets. This is more wholesome. And this is where the dad is actually really supportive. So my dad used to get advanced screening tickets to Harry Potter movies through work, and we got to watch them a week before public release date. He'd also take us to Barnes & Noble midnight release parties for new Harry Potter books, except he wouldn't let us pre-order the books, so at the time I was pretty frustrated. Why go to the midnight release party and leave without the book? Isn't that the whole point of the midnight release party? But in retrospect, it was a lot smarter because we would wait 10 hours later until Costco opened and sold the book for $15 cheaper. So, caring and frugal. It was easy to avoid the internet at the whole time too, so you wouldn't get spoiled. So he'd take us to the library every Friday, and I'd always sneak in a manga in my book, in my bag, and, you know, when he wasn't watching, and then we'd have KFC or Costco pizza for dinner. So it's not all bad. Some dads, I think, show kindness through like actions rather than words.
Your dad's pretty stoic, you'd say, Viv?
Yeah, my dad's really, really stoic.
Doesn't show much emotion.
Doesn't show emotion at all.
Yeah.
I think he was really, really strict when I was growing up, and like everything, it was like if my mum couldn't make the decision, it would go through my dad first, or like my dad is the traditional one, whereas my mum is a bit more less or more modern with her ways. So she understands certain things, but my dad is always like, you know, certain things about marriage or living out of home, et cetera, et cetera. But recently he's become a bit more soft. I'm not sure why, but I think maybe because he's seeing all the kids grow up and like seeing that we're going through our own struggles, I think he's opened up a bit more.
Soft meaning, what's he doing?
He'll try and make conversation in the morning now rather than like telling people what to do. He's still like that, but he'll ask every now and then how things are going, or like how work might be going, or like where I'm going for that day, or like if I've eaten the food that he's made in the fridge yet, that kind of thing.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, that's really sweet.
Yeah.
And then that's have you eaten yet? We all know that is practically I love you in Asian parent language. And if you really want to feel loved, you can wear this have you eaten yet hoodie.
You got to turn around a bit more. Yeah, there we go.
Copy from our merch store, levelasianpod.com.
My dad's actually the same. Like, he's softened up a lot. Like, you know, that story I said, like, I didn't finish because I probably like felt bad.
Got too emotional.
Yeah, got too emotional. But like, my dad, like a few days later, like he asked me how I was feeling, and he apologized and all that stuff. And I think over the years, my dad also has softened a lot. And he's probably because he realized that he's not the man of the house anymore. He probably should just relax a bit and take it easy, because back then it was so stressful for him to go through, like, you know, the stuff he had to go through with mum, like in terms of money. And so, yeah, like, he's actually softened up so much. He asks us, same thing, he asks us how I'm going, like, you know, don't work too hard. Like, he's doing like the whole Asian parent where, like, it's like, look after your health, you know, don't drink too much. how's you and your wife? And all that stuff. It's like, and then all the crazy like when I go traveling, it's like there's COVID everywhere. Be careful. Like, yeah. So he's changed heaps, and it's quite nice to see him. So different.
Yeah, I think my dad he softened up a while ago, just because my dad actually is intuitively quite good with his emotions as well. Still very stoic, but definitely can have like engaging conversations. I think about like two stories with Noel reading that out, not necessarily related to it. Like the first one, I don't know if you guys can relate to this, is being forgotten to be picked up at school.
Yeah.
So this was when I was like 7, right? And I think school is where we were living in the school I went to was probably about a 25-minute walk. So I could walk home, and it was like bucketing down. It was raining really badly that day. And usually my mum picks me up. And that day when you stand outside of school, you wait for the car to roll, and then as slowly everyone gets picked up, you're kind of like, what the hell is going on here, right? And this is like rain coming down.
How old are you?
I was 7.
And is Tony with you?
Tony wasn't. Well, we have a 4-year age gap, so every time Tony started school, I was in high school and he was in primary school, and it was like sort of this cycle, right? And I don't know, maybe he was at daycare or something. So my mum was at home, and she'd forgotten me because my mum's a music teacher, and she got so entrenched in playing like a song, practicing a song, that she actually forgot about the time. She lost sense of time. And so it got to the end where I was just like standing out. I was the last kid outside of school. And then like, I remember, this was very visceral. I was like crying, and I was like super like upset. And I just started walking home.
In the rain.
Yeah. And the whole time I was like, I hate my mom. Like I was like, what am I going to say to her when I see her? Like it was like, I was really angry. I was doing this like this dialogue in my head, right? And then I got home, and then my mum saw me, and she was like playing the piano. She's like, oh, she forgot the time. And I was like crying and like that. And then Noel's story, like it makes me sad. I'm like crying about it now. But yeah, same thing. Like, yeah, so it's like, no, I'm good.
It's meant to be a fun episode.
Look, I think it's real, man.
It just brings back so many memories. That's the crazy thing about this.
I don't think we could avoid this. This is all about.
Yeah, it's not trauma. It's just like the last line about like
It's just those little things, right? Just like that act of service.
It's like the mother's touch. It's like you feel loved. Like it was very contrasting, because it was like 1 second you're like, I hate her, and then the next second you're like, yeah. So it's like,
Yeah.
I think for Asian kids, it's like the one thing we all struggle with, which is like 1 second we hate our parents because they do all sorts of up shit, and then the next second you're like, my parents love me. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy, right?
mm.
It's crazy how, like, the unconditional love that your parents give you, even though they are crazy at times and like they put you through so much stress, but you still love them.
No parents are perfect though. Like there wasn't a manual on how to do this right. Like they were just figuring it out too. And look, the other thing to remember is also that like our parents also had a lot of trauma with the way they were raised in much harsher conditions. A lot of them from backgrounds with war, and and they're just figuring it out. Like
We often forget that our parents are living life for the first time as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just like, when you think about it, it's like she told me like not long after that she couldn't sleep for like nights.
The guilt that she must have been feeling.
Yeah. So it's like not all parents are like this, obviously. Like I'm very lucky where I have like a really loving family. So this comes from just it being like just a like a really just like I'm very privileged, like very lucky. And not everyone has this, right? Like a lot of people go through this and it's like very hard for them. Like I was going through the Reddits and I was just like, man, like these like really like people really hate their parents. And it sounds like, I don't know if it's just from like not understanding your parents and where they're coming from, which is what Viv's saying here as well. But yeah, it's like, it's tough. And like, I think the thing is like, I see how hard my parents work as well. And it's just like, yeah, they're humans. They're like just dealing with their own shit as well. So yeah, I mean, not to make this like all like negative and like that, but it's just like, yeah, it's like, like I was just thinking about this, unpacking this right now. It's like how, it's how hard it is right now for myself as a dad also. And we had this conversation last night where I spoke to Iris about it and we were just like kind of figuring out like, you know, am I doing enough as a dad as well? And am I spending enough time with Hudson? Yeah, it's like we're all just figuring it out, and like we make mistakes as well. So yeah,
I think it's also good to remember that our parents are people too, and you know their whole sole responsibility isn't to take care of us in perpetuity, right? They need their own time to explore their passions and have time for themselves too.
I agree.
Anyway,
all right,
let's move on.
But just going back of the story that Noel shared, it was about a child sharing, got any Harry Potter movies with their dad, I think it was.
Yeah, the book openings at midnight. So back in the day when you used to read paper books and Harry Potter was blowing up, early noughties, yeah, you'd line up and people would dress up in robes and all of that, and it'd be a big thing. Like you'd be so stoked for this book to come out. You want to be the first person to read it in your school as well. So
if I was to like put that same sort of question to you guys, do you guys have any moments with your parents that you like really hold on to, or something that bonds you that people might be surprised that this is like an inside joke or something that you guys connect over that you guys hold close to your hearts?
I think for me it would be buy one get one free Maccas. My mum used to carry like a brick of a wallet, like it was a wallet, but there was just so many vouchers and like $2 Big Mac and all that stuff. And like during our birthdays, I don't know why you asked this question because I really get teary as well. But during our birthdays, that was our birthday presents, where she would take us to Macca's and we would order a Big Mac for my two older brothers and then get me and her a cheeseburger, because we would get a buy one get one free cheeseburger. And yeah, like I would call her randomly when I'm thinking of her and I ask her if she wants Macca's, and then I would just order her Uber Eats Macca's just to remind me of those days. You should have asked that question.
what are you doing to us?
Therapy, eh?
Oh shit.
That's beautiful though.
Yes.
It's just like the sacrifices.
And I know how bad it is for her health, but like it's just like
it's a sentimental thing, right? Yeah.
Because back then it was just like it was so tough then, and that was like the.
It's a little reminder just to be like, remember that moment where we had that win, that really tiny win, and it's just there's a nostalgia about it. Hey.
This is a very derailed episode. Oh no, this was not the plan.
Oh my god.
Do you have anything with your mum, Noel, that you guys kind of was a movie or like something?
Yeah. No, Macca's was a huge thing. Macca's for me, like I didn't like all the kids had the Happy Meal toys, and I was like, oh man, I wish I had that. It's just a piece of shitty plastic. But yeah, man, like the first time my mom like was able to save up enough to buy me a Happy Meal, and I had the toy and I had the experience, and this was in like it was a huge moment for me, and she was like stoked. So
remember those parties that we never got to go to?
The bowling parties.
Yeah, and at Macca's there used to be those party rooms. So like
the kids' party rooms.
You had the slides and all of that, and then there's the Macca's ice cream cake.
Yes. So I used to like wait outside to think that someone would bring me in there.
Oh, that's sad, man.
I did. I'd actually wait outside, and I thought someone would bring me in there because I didn't know that it was like invite only kind of thing. So I just thought like you can get in. So anyway, I don't think I've ever got it because I don't remember ever eating the ice cream. But yeah, it was. I used to like get so jealous. Not being able to enjoy those.
It's crazy.
Those
Like when
parties.
we were kids, like the smallest things were like the biggest deals to us now, and like back then, and oh man, shout out to Macca's.
Macca's sponsor us, man.
Far out.
I'm loving it.
They did such a great job with the whole family stuff. Hey, bloody Macca's. Oh,
Like we're all compartmentalizing a lot of things that we grew up with that were really up. Like, yeah.
it's up, but it also brings back so many good memories.
Like good memories. Like it's in we're crying because it's like it's memories that we
We're
can relate to.
grateful for.
Yeah.
And I think it's because we're grateful for our parents, even though the stuff that they went through, and the trauma that every one of us, as well as our Asian parents, went through as well. I do have a funny Reddit post that I was gonna lighten up the mood.
Done. Let's do it.
I don't remember the Reddit post exactly, so, but there was a post that said like don't bring your Asian parent to your favorite restaurant. Yeah.
Because everything's going to taste like or it's too expensive,
Yeah,
right?
so that would just make it like that would have something bad to say about the restaurant.
Yeah.
And I learned that the hard way because I used to like go, wow, this food is good. So I would take my parents there. But every single restaurant I took them that wasn't Chinese or Vietnamese, yeah, they just didn't like it. Yeah, it's either like it actually tastes good, but they'll look at the menu price and I'm like, yeah, nah, it's too expensive. Or it's good, but it takes long because it's fine dining or whatever it is. They'll be like, why is it taking so long? And then they'll go and ask the waiter, it's like, what are you doing?
Your
Like, yeah.
parents actually spoke to the waiter about
Yeah, no, they always do that. I actually think I've eaten a lot of saliva in my younger...
What?
What? Eating a lot of saliva?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the waiters have spat in out. The way my dad talks to him is like ridiculous. Like, yeah. So I'm scared to bring them to my favorite restaurants now because like the waiters would probably like hate me for it.
That's relatable. Because my dad's a chef. Whenever we go anywhere, he like tries to haggle with like the waitress or waiter, and it's just like, Dad, like don't do that. But what I've figured out is if we go to a restaurant and I'm paying for it, I will order ahead of time knowing what he likes to eat. And then he doesn't look at the menu, he doesn't look at the prices, and he doesn't look at the bill
you're
at the end of the day.
tactical.
Yeah. So then it's all sorted for him. But yeah, I can fully relate.
Yeah, I mean, I can't take my parents out to like nice restaurants because they do the same thing. My mom criticizes the food. She tries to like replicate the dish because she thinks she can do it better because she's a very proud like home cook as well. Yeah, it's hard. And it's also just not an enjoyable experience because I get all grumpy and then then we're just arguing. So it's not good.
Yeah. So I've just decided now moving forward just to take them.
McDonald's and cheeseburgers.
Yeah, take them to only things they want, which is like, McDonald's, kebabs. They love
I just
it.
imagine you with your parents sitting on the side of the street, like squatting and just eating kebabs.
Your mom eating a kebab.
Yeah.
It's the cutest thing. Like I'm thinking about it right now.
Yeah. She eats that because she can't order. It's like she doesn't know how to order it.
Yeah.
So she would
She
only
doesn't speak the language.
Yeah.
This episode is sponsored by Mill on Wines. Mill on Wines are an award-winning family-owned winery located in the renowned wine regions of Barossa Valley, Eden Valley and Clare Valley, presenting a fusion of vineyards that seamlessly infuse new technologies with old world traditions. Their vineyards capture the essence of each region, delivering distinctive wines with complex flavour profiles in small batches, a minimalistic approach that allows the fruit to speak for itself. Explore their range at www.millonwines.com.au. Now, back onto the episode.
That's the other thing I wanted to ask. There is one here where it's like, is it common for your Asian parents to not speak English at all? So I'll read it out. It says, my Asian parents still speak super broken English despite having lived, well, in this case, in America for 50 years since 1975. They migrated when they were 19, so I can't blame them for not being enthusiastic about living in a country that they may not have even wanted to move to. But it's been half a century at this point, and they spent more time in the States than they have in their home country. Nobody expects them to sound like native speakers, but they still have problems with everyday tasks, understanding, making themselves understood. And my siblings and I had to be translator, and they only speak to Vietnamese people because they only hang around Vietnamese people 99.99% of the time and only consume Vietnamese media. And quite a few times they go into a store like Costco and straight up just speak to someone in Vietnamese, to the cashier, who doesn't understand because they're so used to only speaking Viet all day. And a few of their Asian parents, a few of their friends' Asian parents also don't speak English super well. Is this the case for you guys?
100%.
Yeah, like everything. Like you do
everything.
their taxes, you fill in the forms for them.
You do the call centers for them.
You do the call centers for them.
Yeah.
Everything.
I think the older they get, they're more reliable, more
Reliant.
dependent
they are
on
on
us.
you.
Yeah, yeah. So like every single thing is done through us now. Like I feel bad for my older brother because he's the one that deals with all that. I deal with the finances. But yeah, when you say that story, it kind of reminded me of that time where my dad, he did say one word of English, but
Just one.
just one word of English, where just some person on the road was just being an like just blocking the traffic, like just literally it was like a highway where there's so much traffic and that person just walked on, like didn't care about the cars.
Okay.
And my dad was there and he was like, he drives past, waits for the person obviously to walk past, and then he goes, push it, yeah, don't man. I was a kid at that time and I was like, oh man, that was so funny. I just couldn't stop laughing at how like funny it was and he had to just add it to the Vietnamese. It's the funniest thing ever. Like at least just swear in English, but instead he had to add the bloody Vietnamese thing in it.
It's more effective in Vietnamese.
Oh, man. Yeah, your mum's English is...
Yeah, it's pretty good. Like I'm ashamed to say this, but like I was embarrassed of her level of English when I was younger. And like my relationship with my native language, which is Burmese, because I'm technically first gen, I guess. So I came to Australia when I was 5 and I only spoke Burmese and I had to learn English really quickly. So I was watching a lot of like Play School, Sesame Street, all of that. So I could speak, and then I kind of forced her to speak more English as well because I was like, we got to learn this. And as a result, I also kind of resented Burmese, and then I just didn't speak to her in that. So I've kind of lost the ability to really speak, and I only really had the comprehension and vocabulary of a 5-year-old as well. So like as an adult now, I regret not committing to my native tongue and being able to even communicate with my family back home. Like it's so awkward that I can barely speak. But for my mom, like in hindsight now, like yeah, like her English is really good compared to a lot of migrants in her generation as well in that time that we came here in the 90s. And look, I'm fortunate in that she's able to do her own taxes and be able to sort out her paperwork. But I also do try to help her out sometimes because she's, at an older age where she's more vulnerable and, she might, like there's like scammers and stuff.
Yeah,
and
100%.
She's a bit more gullible. And so there's a lot of things. And I feel like, yeah, like I feel ashamed that I was ashamed of our language as a child. So, but yeah, I'm fortunate too.
But you can still learn Burmese now, right?
I can. It's
just tough.
It's tough.
Yeah. We've got a Burmese colleague. You can just talk to her in Burmese.
Oh, she would be able to speak fluent Burmese.
Yeah, no, she's definitely.
Oh, Viv?
My dad came here first to Australia, and because we grew up in like rural New South Wales, he could actually speak a fair bit of English because he had to. But ever since moving to Sydney and being around Chinese staff, he hasn't had the need to speak more than what he needs to. So his English has gotten worse actually. He can understand, but he can't really like speak what he needs to speak. So yeah, all the kids have to step in to translate for him or like navigate certain things for him. My mum actually studied university here, so she had to do uni in English. She had to do her Chinese medicine degree in English as well, but I think she's too afraid to have any conversations in English. Yeah, I think it's a confidence thing.
Yeah.
People aren't as accepting here and they don't have as much patience. So I feel really bad for her just because she doesn't have the confidence to speak to people in English.
Would you start talking to her in English to help her work on that confidence?
Probably not, just because I think it's more comfortable for them to speak in, like we already have a home dialect at home. So like, 'cause like Fuzhouhua is what we speak at home. So I think for them it's just comfortable that they can speak that language at home with all the kids. But you can?
Oh, I was going to ask Senton first.
Yeah, they speak English pretty well, but kind of like Noel came to Australia not knowing English. but the way my parents kind of brought us up is like you have to learn the language, and my dad's like really strict. So the thing was, people are going through genocide for speaking the language, so you have a duty to pass it on.
Of course. Holy
Okay.
shit. Look, my dad overcompensates. So my dad's English is pretty good. Like he can do everything by himself. But when he speaks to people, I don't know if you guys get this as well.
Yeah.
When he goes when he meets like an Aussie, like a white homegrown, he overcompensates with the most bogan accent.
Yeah, he does.
He full goes, "Hang on, mate." You cannot even understand what he's saying. Like it's so bad. And then this is not a language thing. I don't know. Maybe it is. Our neighbor, who's an Italian Australian, like as bogan as it is, right? This is just so funny because he's like, my dad's name is Robert. And he's been calling him Vincent for like 15 years.
So he's calling your dad Vincent.
He's calling my dad Vincent. And my dad, like, you know when like someone calls you the wrong name and like you just like it's too far gone, you can't correct it anymore? So I'm pretty sure at some point, like maybe like 1 or 2 years in, my dad's probably thinking is like, this is too late now. Like I'm Vincent to this guy.
I'm having this experience in the office because there's a couple people who call me Sethan. And I'm just...
Sorry, Zayden.
I'm sorry. But yeah, he's and it's because when my dad speaks English, it's actually quite difficult to understand his English because it's like Chinese bogan. Like I don't know how to describe it other than like it's really bad. But yeah, he's known as Vincent by the neighbor.
A cool story. So is it still Vincent?
It still is, and I didn't register this until 3 years ago. And I bumped into the neighbor. I was like, "Oh, hey, how you going?" and stuff like that. And he's like, and then my dad came out and they started talking. And he's like, "So Vincent, like this thing," and I was like, "Who the is Vincent?"
And you didn't think to correct it?
No, and then I didn't know what was going on here. And then I made the eye contact with my dad, and he looked at me and he's like, "Nah, it's too far."
Just roll with me,
Yeah, just roll with me, man.
So do you call your dad Vincent?
Actually, just back on that though,
Yeah.
like I think I totally understand, like not feel like it's just that whole thing of do you assimilate or do you kind of stick with what you know and your community, right? And it's challenging, and you can't really blame our parents for like not trying if they don't have to. Like if they're able to get by and communicate with people that are important to them, do the jobs they need to do in their native language, that should be okay. And
I think also on that note, it's like this is still a foreign country to them. Like they are also going day to day without knowing fully how to navigate the world. Like everything is in a different language and they can't fully grasp the understanding of everything every day. And that must be so scary.
Yeah, definitely.
It's especially when you started telling the story where your mum wasn't confident, and I didn't realize, like, because back then I used to say, "Why don't you order like the food? Like, why are you making me always ordering?" And then I'm like, "Oh man, I should have known that my mum's only human, and my dad, and that they probably scared or embarrassed themselves." Yeah, it's crazy, right?
yeah, and look, honestly, like, and if our jobs are just to be translators, I feel like that's the least we could do, to be honest. Like, I mean, look, my mom's English was good, but she had to, like most migrants, her degree from Burma wasn't recognized, so she had to like start from scratch to get a career.
Yeah.
She went and studied nursing, and so to being academic, you had to write papers, and then she struggled to write in the way that university required you with all the jargon and all of that. So like she was studying when I was in uni, when I was in high school, and also working, take care of me. So we just have to like pair up and team up. Like I'd like proofread her essays and just like do what I can to clean it up as much, make sure she gets P's, all of that. And so I think it's also our responsibility. Like they gave us the opportunity to come here. It was easier for us to assimilate because we were younger. So it was like the least we could really do was just like help them out.
Definitely. I don't know, maybe David can relate because we used to play video games a lot. Is because of how chaotic the Asian household sometimes can be. Did you guys ever like stay up at night late just because it was way more quiet? Like in the household? Because your parents are just all on up your ass throughout the day, so that when they go to bed, which they usually go fairly early, my parents do anyway, and you're like, I can actually just be a child for once and like actually enjoy it.
Yeah, that's why I used to wear glasses until I got LASIK.
Because you used to be on the computer at night.
Yeah. turn off.
Yeah, I used to turn off the light as well.
And then I would like cover the door, the gap. It was so bad. And that's where I started wearing glasses. And I remember my dad used to go, "Why are you wearing glasses? No one here in this family wears glasses. Why are you wearing it?" And I'm like, I know why. At nighttime playing games. So bad.
Oh man, yeah. I used to do the same thing, and I would get caught pretty regularly because my parents, I don't know, maybe they got weak bladders, but they would wake up and go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, and they could see the light. He was smart. He covered the light.
Yeah.
I didn't cover the light.
Yeah.
So of course they saw it as well. They'd like, I don't know, maybe check up on you and just make sure you're like, I don't know, you haven't kicked the blankets and put the blankets on, and fuck, so many times, middle of the night, got caught pretty freaking hard about it. And then copped it as well. Maybe not like this guy with the hands on the wall. But my mum used to lecture. She used to tell me off for about an hour and a half straight. I just stand there and get screamed at for an hour and a half. Yeah. Because she, again, teacher, just blah, 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 blah. And it just, I think as a kid, you don't know anything better. And you used to just stand there and just take it.
But what would she say for now?
She'd say all the Asian things. She'd say things like, she'd do a lot of guilt tripping. She'd be like, we didn't work so hard for you to like do these things. I thought she would say like "Sanga chaso ugole," which means what does that mean?
It's giving birth to a barbecue bun is better than having you. It's just Cantonese people. Like I feel like Cantonese like not swear words, but Cantonese like
Phrases.
lecturers, phrases.
Oh,
man, they're very deadly. Like so bad.
Yeah. Like I mean, she would say things like you're useless. Like she'd go really hard, and I think now my mum softened out and she's realized she shouldn't have like gone that hard. But at the time, I think also because my mum is a very emotional person, so when she gets really rolled up, it just keeps rolling. And I don't know what the hell my dad was doing at the time. He definitely wasn't part of that.
Yeah,
he was nowhere to be seen.
Tell you what he did. He went into his room, put a comment on.
So yeah, she'd be yelling at me for ages. But I do remember, like as a child, she'd say guilt tripping things. She would say things like, like when we're eating dinner, if we didn't want to eat a certain, I don't know, thing, she'd be like, who else has got the privilege of like having this much food on you? I don't know if you got that. She used to say things like that. She's like, you think you're like, and she'd drop names of like family friends and stuff. And she'd be like, you think they have this many dishes at night? They just have one dish and they just share it between each other. Like you're very lucky. Like you're very privileged. Like you should be grateful. Yeah, it was like a lot of those memories were during that time.
How does that shape your thinking now?
I'm not sure. I think it makes me grateful and appreciative. But I think I'm maybe I don't know, maybe just my personality. I think some, like reading Reddit, a lot of people like really resentful to their parents for this sort of shit. But I don't think I ever was like, I was very just like, yeah, you're right, mum. Like, okay, like, yeah, we're pretty lucky. And that's why I didn't ever feel like overly poor.
I think it's also because like she probably gave you the loving side too. Like a lot of people don't have that loving side to
True.
compensate and balance it.
Yeah.
It's I think it's quite traumatic for a lot of people. Going off of what you said, my dad did the same thing, but not when lecturing us. Like when we do Lunar New Year spreads, because they are Buddhist and they have to do like food offerings and everything. Like they have to do a bunch of different dishes. And there's been a few years where like it's all laid out on the table and like some of the kids, we don't want to really eat some of this stuff. And he's like, he'll just recount like, when I was a kid, when we were in Chinese New Year, like we were lucky to eat eggs that year for the one time that year, or like we would ration out all of our meat servings to each other, to all the kids. And he was like, you guys are so lucky to be able to just eat whatever you want. And
did he say it that way, or was it like,
pretty much?
Yeah, it was like not a shouting thing.
Yeah, he just explained to us, you guys don't know how good you guys have got it.
And how does that shape your thinking now?
For me, I'm like very, very, very grateful for what privilege I have compared to a lot of people. Like I think also just being raised in that environment, going to high school where, I don't know if I can keep this, but not everyone was in a good financial position. We were just speaking about it last night. And like, for example, like when we went to formal, some of the girls couldn't actually afford formal dresses, and the teachers would pay out of their pocket just to put some money together for them to be able to go to formal. And like seeing that play out amongst the things that my parents would remind us of, it just makes me have a lot more empathy for those who might not be able to have as much privilege as I do or opportunities as I do.
Yeah, that reminded me of the time when I was being a spoiled brat, and I like forced my parents to buy me formal like clothing. And like formal clothing is the worst thing to buy a kid, because like, especially when you're not making any money, because you only can really wear it once.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember. Like I remember the photos that I took when I was in that formal gear and how happy I was. Yeah, being with my friends. Yeah.
I think growing up as a kid, like maybe people just want like to belong. Like,
of course.
yeah, you see your friends, and if your friends have a different socioeconomic status, or maybe they have better access to things, you feel very left out because of it as well. I used to remember that used to be the case as well, whether it's like even just like buying lunch, you couldn't afford buying lunch, you just bring lunch instead. Like it's pretty tough during that time as well.
Yeah. And to answer your question, then like, yeah, it makes me very grateful for what my parents like sacrificed for us to have. And yeah, sometimes a bit of a regret that we treated our parents the way we treated them. But yeah, like I trying to be a better son as a result of that. Definitely. And do what we can for them. And yeah, you're right, Viv. We're lucky ones where like, our parents did give us some love as well, even though they sometimes like were being like, the typical Asian parents and lecture us and think that we're not as good as a Char Siu Bao.
Cool. I want to share another story, and this is probably a little bit more wholesome. So I cheated on a math test once when I was 9. I had gotten the paper back, and I had gotten 98 out of 100.
Wow.
Back when math was easy. I had gotten one question wrong due to a careless mistake, and I was so terrified of my mum scolding and verbal humiliation, so I changed my answer. It was multiple choice, and changed the marks. Silly me, didn't realize that the question was actually worth 2 marks. So I amended my score to 99 out of 100 when it should have been 100. So my mum signed off on it without checking through, and I thought I was home free. My school had a policy for parents to sign off on test scores to make sure that they were aware of our academic level. So the next day, my teacher saw through that immediately, and I was called down to the principal's office. They called my dad in from work as well, and I remember just standing there. My teacher, my principal, my dad, that damn test paper, and I was bawling my eyes out of terror. They were perplexed. Why did I feel the need to cheat and alter the results when I was one of the top students and did so well on the test? What was going on? I thought my dad would be furious and hit me, but he was calm and gentle the whole time, and told me to apologize to my teacher and principal and promise to never do it again. He then took me home and didn't say anything to me for the rest of the afternoon. At dinner that evening, as we all sat on the table, I was terrified the whole time he would tell my mum, but he never said a word about the principal's office and my cheating. And I didn't think he ever did. What went down that afternoon stayed between him and I until today. Daddy ain't no snitch.
He probably felt bad though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably felt bad that his kid had to cheat even though he topped the score. Yeah, which is
because they conditioned the kid to have to reach these heights.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of Asians can relate to that, I'm sure. Just like expectations on. Yeah, I remember school, get kids who freaking got the best scores and they'd be crying their eyes out. Because
I legit had some guy cry his eyes out because he got 93 and he didn't get 98.
We had someone in when our school did this thing, like the morning of the HSC results, we would go and have morning tea with all of the head teachers. They'd invite us back and we'd all celebrate together. But there was one student, she was an international Chinese student, and she got 99.5 or something instead of a 99.95, and she was sitting there bawling her eyes out because she didn't make it into medical school, and therefore she would have to spend another year being an international student, and her parents paying for that before she could take the test again to get into medical school. I felt so bad for her, and no one could understand that because it's She missed it just by that little bit because her parents had like, they were pissed off at her and they thought that she was a failure because of it. And that's so like you're working so hard to get 99.5, but you just didn't get the 99.95.
As a kid.
As a teenager.
Well, that's what they say. Like a lot of Asian parents beat the child out of being a child. Like you're no longer a child, you're just a freaking robot trying to hit the results that your parents expect you to do. It's pretty. I'm just lucky I didn't have that. You know. Well, I don't think any.
I didn't have the like. My parents didn't really care too much about like my. Well, I wasn't that bad of a student, so I did okay.
You're better than the Charles Bowl.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was okay.
Maybe a nice way to wrap things up is, Ken, as the only parent in the room, what's something that your parents did that you definitely want to pass on as a parent to Hudson?
Oh, that's a good question. I think the thing that my parents gave me the most was like choice. So I think for a lot of Asian kids, like you read these stories and it's like they don't have choice. Like they can't explore what they want to explore because like there's one here which I'll read out real quick, which is this was part of the How to Be an Asian Parent. It's like your kids can be whatever they want to be as long as they become a doctor, lawyer, engineer, or accountant. And then once your kid becomes a licensed professional in one of the categories, ignore their advice because you naturally know more due to your age. After all, decades of being an Asian parent qualifies you to give learned medical, legal, accounting, engineering advice despite having zero professional training.
University of WeChat.
That's good, dude. That's good.
That's where you get your degrees.
Bachelor of WeChat. And I think fundamentally, the thing that my parents gave me the most compared to all the other Asian kids that I witnessed was they were always like, as long as you're happy, you do whatever the fuck you want. We don't care. As long as you're safe. And that's a very like atypical Asian parent household. So I think the main thing for me as a dad means that he should be able to just explore what he wants to explore. Unless he's objectively really bad at something like acting or singing, then we might have to question that again. But other than that, that's probably the main one. Yeah. So we'll end it there. Thanks guys for tuning in. This is the most derailed episode ever. I don't know. We went up and down and like every between.
Like, comment, subscribe.
And if you guys have had any relatable Asian parent stories that you'd like to share with us that we might find relatable or other people might find relatable, feel free to DM us at Level Asian Pod or give us a website submission at levelasianpodcast.com, which is also where you can get our merch. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and follow us for the next episode.
See ya.
Thanks so much for tuning in. A lot of work and effort goes into Level Asian with a whole team behind the scenes. While we aren't looking for anyone to pay for this content, what helps the podcast grow, reach more people, and benefit more Asians around the world is if you could leave a 5-star review if you're on Spotify, Apple, Google, or any other audio platforms. And leave us a like, comment, and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Catch you on the next episode.